Welcome back to What My Dad Does, and today I'm talking about finish plastering. I'll be finish plastering this wall. I'm going to give you two helpful tips at the end of this video, so stay watching till the end. And in between, lots of hints and information. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and let's find out how we're going to do this. So firstly, let's talk about the tools you're going to need to skim finish this wall. First thing you need is a large bucket to mix the plaster up in, obviously. I believe this can be bought from most builders merchants. And then you're going to need something to mix it up with. So you can buy an individual whisk that will fit in a normal drill. If you're only doing like one wall, then obviously that's the best way to go. I find long term that they used to kill my drills. So I would not recommend that for if you're doing a whole house or a number of walls over a period of months or something like that. I'm not too sure obviously what you're doing, but it might be worth investing in one of these proper whisks. I use this to mix everything from plasterboard adhesive to hardwall to finished plaster. This has been with me for years and years and years. A fantastic tool, and I'd highly recommend one of these if you're doing more than just a few walls. Once you've mixed the plaster, then you're going to obviously want to tip it out. I've got myself a metal stand with a bit of plywood on it that I just use somewhere to tip it onto, and then I just scoop it off onto my hawk. This is a hawk. You'll need one of these as well. But again, if you're just doing one wall, you might just want to buy one of these little trowels, which you can then just scoop the plaster out of the bucket, put it on there, get your plastering trowel, scoop it onto the wall. This is a 14-inch trowel, I believe. I use that one most of the time. I've got an 18-inch one as well. I don't tend to use that one as much. I don't know why. You get a favourite, don't you? And this tends to be my favourite. What I would say is invest in a decent trowel. Doesn't matter so much with the hawk, but get yourself a decent trowel. If you buy a cheap, tiny one, you're going to be fighting a good fight to try and get that good and nice and flat and finished. Buy yourself a good trowel. It will save you a lot of effort and hard work. When you're plastering a wall, you might, if you're doing a room, you might want to do opposite walls and let them dry and then do opposite walls, which is fine. Or you might want to do successive walls, so you might want to bring them in which case you're going to have a corner. If you're going to have a corner, you're going to want a 90-degree trowel like this. Fantastic little tool, especially if you're dry lining. You'll need one of these. And that is about it. The only other thing to mention is a decent big brush. You're going to want, I've got two brushes in here, one for washing up and one for putting water on the plaster when I'm finally troweling it up. I'll talk about that later, but you'll need two decent sized brushes. You'll also need some clean buckets. So I've got a bucket next to this bucket that I mix up in, just full of water that I then take my whisk out of there, put it straight in that one, give it a wash and clean it, and that's my dirty water. And another bucket with clean water. If I need to mix another one quickly, I can tip water straight in and get going. Last but not least, if you're doing ceilings, a lot of ceilings, you're going to want plastering stilts. I use these all the time, especially for painting. Funny enough, for cutting in around the top edge of rooms when I'm painting, so it's so much quicker. Obviously, they are an investment, and if you're just doing a wall like this, I won't be wearing those stilts because they're too much of a faff taking them on and off, and just to reach up that little bit there, I'll just use a hop up or something like that just to do the top bit and then jump back off. But if you're doing ceilings, especially a number of ceilings, then I would recommend investing in some stilts. I think that's about it. For tools, obviously, there's loads of different tools you can buy, but generally that's my core kit. And the next thing to do will be to prepare the wall. So let's take a look at that. So you've got your tools and you're ready to start plastering. So the first thing to do is to make sure this wall is ready. So this is a painted wall, so I'm going to need to PVA this. PVA is a type of glue that you water down, paint on or roll on. The painted surface will give it added adhesion for the plaster. If it's not painted, I don't tend to do it. If it's just a plasterboard surface or something like that, I wouldn't do it. But if it is something like a hard-walled surface or a rendered surface, then I would definitely do that. Secondly, holes. You can see there was a hole up here. Skim finished plaster is not to fill holes. It is literally to do what it says. It's to skim over and make a flat, nice surface to paint onto. If you've got holes, I've filled that one with hard wool. It doesn't matter if you use hard wool or maybe render or whatever you want to use, but you will need to fill the holes first. Hard wool is just another plaster product. You mix with water, put it in, fantastic product. It can be nice and thick and deep, and it's really good. I recommend it. Thirdly, let's talk about if this is not a painted surface, if it's a plasterboard wall, you're going to have joints where the plasterboard's butting up. You're going to need to tape those joints with some scrim tape. This just literally sticks on over the joint and will prevent any cracking at that joint. You can see around the edge here, I've got the scrim tape showing where I've plastered the ceiling, so I've run it all around the ceiling, and you can see it showing there when I skim up to that, and it'll just prevent that joint from cracking. Last but not least, let's talk about a bit of safety. We've got on here a live lighting circuit and a live power circuit. I will turn the power off and release these from the wall, just pull them away a bit so I can get a trowel behind there, but you 100% want the power off. If you're using a metal trowel and a live wire's in there somewhere, you don't want to be electrocuting yourself. So let's turn the power off. You might not have power sockets on your wall, but if you have, definitely be safe. Right, so the next thing to do will be to mix your plaster. So let's take a look at that. So let's talk about the mixing process. So you want to take your plastering bucket and put in fresh, cold, clean water. Don't use dirty water, even with a little bit of plaster in it, throw it away, get fresh, clean water in here. And then add a bit of the finished plaster, mix it, a bit more finished plaster, mix it, etc., until you get it to the right consistency. Now, it's difficult for me to tell you how much water to put in there because obviously I don't know what you're plastering. I tend to guess mine because just through experience, I guess, I can work out roughly how much I want just by looking at an area. There are instructions on the back of the bag that will tell you how much that bag will cover meterage wise. So you should be able to work out roughly, okay, I've got half that. So also it tells you how much water you want for the bag. So you need half the amount of water. Unfortunately, it's just going to be a bit of one of those things, trial and error. You're going to need to work it out roughly how much you need. Consistency wise, same sort of thing. I did a video on plastering over Artex ceilings. And for that, the first coat, I tend to use it quite thick. So that would be a different consistency to what I would be putting on here. This will be slightly thinner, and for the top coat will be slightly thinner again. So the consistency is really up to you. All I would say is if it's too thick, it's hard work. If it's too thin, it's falling off all over the floor and all down your arm and everywhere. So they say it should be like thick cream. What is that like? I don't know, but generally you want it to have some sort of body to it. That's the way I tend to look at it. If the whisk is sort of just getting slightly thicker rather than sort of water consistency, if it's getting slightly thicker, that's normally okay for me. But I will show you how sort of thick I'm going to be using it and putting it on. The process, I will put on one quick coat. I'll always start at the bottom and trowel up, work across, put one quick coat on here, let it dry or go off enough so I can then just trowel it up quickly, just so it's relatively flat, and then I'll mix a second lot. The second lot really is there to fill any gaps, and because this, over the span of this trowel, you want this whole trowel to be touching the plaster as you go across in either direction. If you go across it and it misses a big hole, that's where you want to put the second coat. You're trying to fill it out so this trowel covers it, because when you finish trowel that up, you want the whole surface to be smooth and not have holes everywhere. So that'll be the second coat, which I'll then let go off before I trowel it up. And I will then go over it maybe with a little bit of water on one of those brushes and follow behind it with the trowel. And the very last coat, I'll probably sort of paint a little bit of water on there and then trowel the whole thing up in nice big long lines, get the whole thing smooth. And I'll be chasing that water down the wall so there's no water lines everywhere. So I'll show you that anyway, but it'll be a sped up video. Obviously, you're not going to sit here for 2 hours and watch me do that. So I'll do a sped up video. Hopefully you can see it. And yeah, I'll get this PVA'd first. Then I will let that go a bit tacky. I'll mix. I'll start my first coat, then second coat, then trowel it up. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so that's mixed up. It's hard for me to show you the texture of this, but as I say, it's like thick cream is what they say. It falls off the trowel, maybe a little bit sticks in the trowel, but generally it's not too dry, so it's thick to put that in. It's not wet, so it's like water. Somewhere in between is what you want. And all we're going to do, we're going to scoop some of this onto the hawk. And then the technique is you just tip it back, and there's some on there, not loads, don't need loads. So again, just trowel on, hook back, and there's some on there. And we're just going to use the edge of the trowel to put it on the wall, not the flat of the trowel. If you do the flat, it will stick. It will just suck to the wall, and then you need to break it off. Sometimes it can pull the plaster. So just use the edge, and you're just literally thinning it out up the wall. I hope you can see from there. And we're just going to put it on and go up the wall. This is a fairly thin coat. I say it's an already plastered wall, so I don't need to do it thick. Just literally smoothing it out, really. Sorry, I keep going up and then coming back down. You might not want to do that if you're new to this. You might just literally want to go up, which is fine. As you get a little bit more experience with it, you will go a bit quicker and go backwards and forwards. In this corner here, I'm just going to use the end of my trowel and just try and go up that edge. Like so. And what we want to do is get this coat on as quick as we can, because it's all going to be going off straight away. As soon as we put it on there, it's starting to dry. So you're literally just covering as fast as you can, and we'll just keep going right away across the wall. Then I'll get on my hop up, I'll do the top bit along the edge. So I'm going to crack on with that. I'm going to put it on a sped up video so you can see it. Get this first coat on and done, and then I'll come back when it's dried out a little bit, and I'm going to try it up a bit. Right, okay, so that's the first coat on. Now, what I'm going to do, this has just dried off a bit, and I can feel that on my trowel. It's gone firm on my trowel. What I just want to do is just smooth it out. I don't know if you can see from there, but there's all sorts of ripples. All I've done is literally troweled it on. I haven't tried to make it smooth. I'm not trying to make it smooth at this stage. What I'm going to do now is just use the edge of my trowel again and just literally walk over it and flatten it off. Okay, I'm not trying to make this a perfect flat surface. We're a long way from finishing at the moment. I'm going to try and fill any sort of holes I can see, and just literally smooth it out. As I say, we're just about to put another coat of plaster over this, so I don't need to worry about making it perfectly smooth. What I really want to do is just check that it's all covered okay, that there's no massive gaps in anything. There's a big gap there. And then I'll put my second coat on. Now my second coat's going to be slightly thinner. Okay, so the second coat is now on and drying. Now is when we want to go over it again. Essentially, when you go over it like that, the metal tends to bring the water to the surface. So you get a very fine top that you can play around with. This is where we start to make this flat and smooth. The first coat was really just to cover everything, all the holes that I'd filled and joined joints and all that sort of business. That's the first coat's job. Second coat, and so that's it. We're finished. I might go over this with a bit of water and the trowel once more just to shine it up. But in general, that's it. That's your wall done. I did promise you guys some tips. So tip number one, make sure that you get ready for your second mix when you finish your first mix, especially if you're mixing it and plastering it by yourself. So once you've tipped it on the board, clean everything up. Clean up the whisk, clean up the bucket, get everything ready, get some water, get it ready for your next mix, because there's nothing worse than getting 3/4 of the way through the wall and then thinking, uh-oh, I haven't got enough stuff. Now you've got to try and wash everything up. By that time it's dried. You're trying to chip it off the bucket and stuff. It's a nightmare. You're wasting time. So always tip it out, get it all washed up and ready for your next one before you put that on the wall. Secondly, when you do pick the bucket up, make sure that you're not brushing off bits of dry plaster or bits of dry plaster from the bottom or sides of the bucket into your fresh mix. Because those little lumps, when you try and spread this on the wall, they're literally going to scratch right the way through the wall and you can't get them out. It's a disaster. So you need to keep your fresh plaster clean. And bonus tip, third tip, when you're mixing, wear a mask. That plaster's not going to be good for you if you're inhaling it. So just wear a mask whenever you're mixing. And that's it. I really hope that helps. That is a lot of information. I'm exhausted, and hopefully that will help with your plastering skills. I'd love to see some examples of your work, actually. If any of you do this video and it helps and you do something, then if you email them to me, that'd be great. I'd love to see them. Otherwise, I will catch you on the next one. If you need to watch a video of how to do ceilings over Artex, then there's a video on that as well on my channel, which you can find. And all the best of luck, and I'll see you soon.